Good day, guys. Austin here, and in this one today, we're going to be playing Super Mario 3D Land on the Citra Emulator. Now, this is obviously a 3DS emulator, which makes us play, well, it doesn't make us, but it allows us to play 3DS games on our PC. And to be honest, even now, looking at this on my first test, we're looking good. 60 frames per second on the intro screen. Now, in the past, we've been looking to get about 30 frames per second on the official builds, and that's the build that we're using today. It is the official Bleeding Edge build, which you can download from the official website. Links in the description down below. Let's see how this works. Right then, let's get into a game. Enough of this. Oh, I'm in the demo screen now. Is this a demo? I can't even remember. Anyway, we digress. Let's get on with it. So, new game. Of course, this is the Bleeding Edge. I'm using keyboard and the mouse to do my touchscreen. I have actually got a touchscreen available. I could, if I wanted, get my controller to work, but I'm using this completely stock and default in terms of the emulator. Let's get into it, and then I'll talk more about it. File been created. Okay, cool. Cool story, bro. Right, so far then, intro screen, FMV going on. In fact, I don't even think this is FMV. I think this is fully rendered. We're playing this at 60 frames per second again, especially in the official builds. We were probably dropping as low as the 30s, sometimes lucky to get that. But when the initial load up comes, as you can see, we're getting a few stutters. But other than that, we're at 60 frames per second. Now, as I said in the warning little screen beforehand, I have disabled the sound for this. It's not because I don't want to show you or because it's not working. It's because Nintendo will start kicking off if I start allowing the music to be played, blah, 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 all that kind of good stuff. So, I've added my own music, but I can tell you that there is no voices in this. It's all Mario talk, isn't it? But the music, the sound effects, and all that kind of good stuff is working and working very well. Awesome. This is 60. I hope the game's like this. Right, let's get into a map. That'll be the true test. Let's go. Okay, we're dropping. Let's give it a chance to load. We have dropped. We are now on... No, there we go. It must have to wait for it to load or something. We're looking pretty good at the moment. So I wouldn't say this is 100% stable, but yeah, I'm liking this. Right, before we get stuck into it then, let me show you a few of the options. Basically, in the emulation tab at the top, I can configure. Let me show you what I've got going on here. This is the complete official build. It's the Bleeding Edge, which means that it's kind of like the beta or the alpha version of this. In other words, this build that I'm using now was only compiled about 3 hours ago. It's pretty cutting edge. It's not got a lot of the features which some of the more unofficial builds have got, but they're keeping it kind of clean and uncluttered. Everything is added to this with being official, although not maybe stable. Anyway, let's show you what I've got. System-wise, it's all generic. It's all default. Like I said, I'm using the keyboard and mouse at this time. Graphics, this is the only thing that I changed. Basically, in internal resolution, I turned this down to, well, I turned it up, should I say, to 960p. Now, I could push this. I could probably push this all the way to the limit. I'm noticing the impact in terms of the resolution impacts more on my GPU than it does on my CPU, although they both work hand in hand, so you can see more strain on probably more lower end PCs. My specs are all in the description, so you can see what you're getting yourself and comparisons of what to expect when you try this out. The reason why I'm doing 960, not pushing it any further, because I want to keep this sensible. I want to have a good baseline that all the other tests that I'm doing, and we can see how they're all working in comparison to each other. Many games that I've noticed are working to their full potential. I mean pushing it to the limit. And being able to upscale this to 960p, although it doesn't sound very good, is in reality as close to 1080p as we can. Let's face it, when we're looking at this screen, because it's being rendered, let me just show you the rest of the settings, they're all default, okay? Because they're being rendered onto this smaller screen within the screen, by the time it's put onto our big TVs, it is literally upscaling to around about 1080p, which is pretty damn good and the least I would expect when emulating a game on a large TV. Okay then, enough of that. Let's actually get stuck in and see what the gameplay is like. Get my controls. Here we go. So we have dropped again. I think it's because there's stuff going on the map. It is playable. I'll give it that. In terms of the music, sound effects, all that, that is all spot on. The only difference is that at certain points I am seeing certain drops in my gameplay. As you can see, we're down to 43, 41 now. Let's get into a more open area of the map. Like I said, I'm not playing this to actually enjoy the game, although I do love this game. I'm doing this to see how it's compatible with this version of the emulator. And as we can see, as it's starting to get into the actual game, especially in this more closed environment, we're getting right up there with the 60s. This is obviously a 60 frames per second game, and its native resolution, I think it's something like 240p. So having this detail and fidelity in the graphics looks absolutely awesome. I do love the Mario franchise, and the open 3D worlds are really where they come into action. Let's see if I can speed this up a little bit. So yeah, the speed-wise, now we're starting to get into the game, it's starting to speed up a little bit. This could be just due to the map. Obviously, different apps will affect... Different maps will affect this emulator in various different ways. Oh, terrible for reaching for the flag then. Ooh, bit of stutter. But all in all, a good little test there. Let's just give it one more level, see if there's any change. I've got a feeling because the next one's a more closed environment level, in other words, it's the underground stage, we should have some good compatibility, I reckon. I'm pretty happy about this. For the official build, and how well is it running on various different games, especially this, because this is a very problematic game in terms of speed. I mean, again, we're on 60 frames per second again. Very playable. Very playable. I'm just playing this to try and get through the level. I'm not really too fussed about getting anything or... Oh, no. No, it's okay. Doing pretty well, to be honest. For keyboard control, I'm doing... But yeah, hats off to this EMU team for this latest build. The bringing out of the bleeding edge really did step it up a mark or two. It allowed them to use new features which were kind of experimental to bring it up to the level where a lot of the unofficial builds were going. I mean, I think this all stemmed from basically that Chinese build that came out some time ago. And since then, everybody keeps on going, oh, let's play the Chinese versions all the time. It was just a case that a certain Chinese guy decided to use a lot of the more experimental plugins and ideas and all that kind of stuff when he was compiling one of his builds. And because there was a huge speed up, especially in terms of the JIT compiler, that added the extra frames per second, made more games playable, all that kind of stuff. So people asking for the Chinese versions of the actual emulators now makes no sense. You may as well just play either one that's specifically made for a game to get the extra stuff out of that, or to just play the official builds, in other words, a bleeding edge, because you're getting the kind of the same results. The only thing I would say that I would like to see in these official builds, especially the bleeding edge, is I think a great addition. I forgot my keys. There we go. A great addition was the texture scaling with the BRZ, and that makes the games look beautiful. Because of course, turning the internal resolution up on these games makes the games look awesome, as you can see now. You know, it looks absolutely beautiful, and it makes a HD game from what is pretty much under standard definition, you know. These games were intended to be played on a, what, 2-inch screen or something like that, as if you had the original. And when you do play them on a large screen, such as, you know, 60-inch or something like that, then the games look terrible. So having the internal resolution makes that a lot cleaner, and then as if they would appear on the actual Nintendo 3DS in that kind of resolution. But the difference is that when you're looking at, say, for example, the numbers up at the top, or the title screens, or more 2D based games, the textures, the actual 2D pictures and fonts and layouts and all that kind of stuff, they don't get upscaled. They don't get that kind of treatment. So it can look a bit higgledy-piggledy depending on what game you're playing. And having that ability to upscale and use certain renders and filters and all that kind of stuff really adds something else to it, and that's something that I would like to see in future builds of the official stuff. Of course, I know there's all kinds of testing that needs to take place before they go in, before they release it to the public, even in the bleeding edge stuff, but it would be nice. Anyway, I'm complaining here. Everybody involved in all this stuff, you've done an awesome job. Right, let's get to the end of this level then. Love this game. Absolutely love it. Leet. Oh, this is hard. Oh, that was terrible. It's diabolical. Anyway, guys, you know how it is. You can see how it runs. It runs pretty damn well. Of course, on some maps, even on that first one, it seems to speed up after a while, but I think it is very much level dependent. We are almost there. I would say this is probably in the high 90% compatible right now. The only problem we've got is the issues to do with the frames per second. Some maps don't treat this emulator very well. But I'd say we're almost there, to be honest. And having this as the official build, getting this kind of treatment and this kind of compatibility, it's awesome news. And again, I've done the exact same thing. But anyway, guys, I'm not going to drag this out anymore. It's been a pleasure, as always, bringing this to you. Please like, please subscribe, please do all the things that people normally do. Especially go and check out my gaming channel because, well, I'm playing games every day on that one. Anyway, most of all, you have a good day. Laters!